Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Stop Mass Hysteria, Michael Savage.
Well, that is the Jewish prayer for the dead, and that is specifically in the memory of those killed on Saturday by the Nazi with the AR-15 and the Glocks. Deranged, crazy, a coward, picks on innocent people who cannot defend themselves. It's a one-way story. There's nothing to argue about. All we can do is remember those slaughtered mercilessly. But we have to ask some questions, don't we? The minute this happened, I became infuriated because, once again, I had called for armed guards in synagogues since the 1980s, and by the way, in other houses of worship. Of course I'm right. The Israelis know I'm right. Only the American progressive thinks I'm wrong. And so you look back, if you remember the black church in Charleston, South Carolina, in June 17th of 2015, when a maniac went in and killed 9 black people. Nice old people, black church, Charleston, South Carolina, goes in and shoots them, Dylan Roof. And happily did he confess to the massacre at Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church. Went in there and killed him. Said Roof, whatever his name was, Dylan Roof. And so after that, many churches started to have armed guards in them. And yet there were shootings in churches after that. For example, I remember there was one recently a couple of years ago, I think in Texas. So the logical conclusion is armed guards in synagogues and other houses of worship. I put that up on October 27th. And of course, the liberals went berserk. Well, you can't argue with insane people. All I kept saying was, look at the Israelis. They have the Torah in one hand and a machine gun in the other. That still doesn't influence them in any way, because liberalism is a blind faith in progressivism. And progressivism has nothing to do with God and nothing to do with religion, by the way. I don't think you understand that most progressives, whether they be Jewish or Catholic, that I have met, at least in my lifetime, are not really religious. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in Jesus. They don't believe in their religion. To them, they say religion is really a social decision. Progressivism is their religion. I've met them, I've heard them, and I literally say, what world are they living in? Their ancestral religions they don't believe in, but they believe in communism / progressivism? George Washington said this about the Jews, in case you're confused about the Jewish place in America. He wrote it to a synagogue in Truro in August of 1790. The citizens of the United States of America have a right to applaud themselves for having given to mankind examples of an enlarged and liberal policy, a policy worthy of imitation. All possess alike liberty of conscience and immunities of citizenship. He then applauded the Jews for being in America. 1790, George Washington. Boy, have things changed in this country. Does the media want division? Does hatred attract on both sides? I'm going to talk about that today. Should we have armed guards in houses of worship? I'm going to talk about that today. Now, a group in Pittsburgh, a group that is backed by George Soros' son, Alexander Soros, has said, don't come to Pittsburgh. They have the nerve to say that to Donald Trump in times like this. It's a group called Bend the Arc. Well, these are bent people in my mind. Their minds are bent. Bend the Arc Jewish Action, funded largely by George Soros' son, Alexander Soros. Immediately, they came out and said Trump has no right to come to Pittsburgh. How we resist and win. Progressive Jews across the country. Mark Baum, Peter Beinart, Bernard Friedman, Simon Greer, Ilse Hogg, Judith Tuller, Howard Walensky are all board members of the Bend the Arc Jewish Action. And they hate Donald Trump. They don't want him in Pittsburgh. But the rabbi of the synagogue said Donald Trump is certainly welcome here. You talk about welcoming Trump to Pittsburgh at a time like this. If ever there was a time to welcome a president and put down your hatred for all things conservative and nationalistic, it's now. And then you have the media. Who runs CNN? And why does he hate Donald Trump? And why does he not stop his puppets and marionettes from spewing such hatred around the clock, triggering people like this to do this madness? Why? There's an awful lot to talk about today on the Savage Nation. I'm not going to be the only one talking, but you could see already where I'm coming from. So let me begin. Well, I actually began by giving you my phone number, 855-400-7282. This is not an easy show for me to do. I'd rather be silent today, to be honest with you. All morning, actually, it was all weekend, I was saying, I'd rather not do the show on Monday. I actually thought of not being here. Because either you do this right or you don't do it at all. It's that simple. You do it right, 100% right, or don't do it at all. I have seen hatred on my Twitter feed that I can't believe exists. Whatever I say, the psycho leftists attack me, then twist it. Whatever Trump says, the psycho leftists twist. I had to say to them, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you people? Someone says, it's unfortunate you see it that way, Michael, but there's a direct correlation between what the message of the president to what is happening in the news right now. And I have to reply to these dunces. His daughter and grandkids are Jewish. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. Sad your hatred for America has so blinded you. What is wrong with these people? Another one says, Dr. Savage, your love of the president blinds you to the hate he promotes regularly. And I say your hatred of Trump blinds you to all the good he has done to protect the nation. Another one says, Michael, these people aren't speaking truths. They have politicized Jewish deaths using a resistance faction of their own. The hatred of the president is so overwhelming to these people that they don't even know their own religion. And to think that George Soros' son, Alexander Soros, would not disavow language like this on a day like today. To make believe that these far-left, quote, progressive Jews speak for all Jews and for Pittsburgh is actually nauseating. Does the media want division? Does hatred attract on both sides? Well, I'll let you decide. I mean, last week, the nation was captivated as the search for the man responsible for sending multiple inept pipe bombs ended in Florida with the arrest of Cesar Sayak Jr. Then on Saturday, we were horrified to watch the attack that took the lives of 11 Jewish people at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh as the gunman opened fire and yelled, all these Jews need to die. We are witnessing violent atrocities and acts of aggression at an alarming rate as the fault lines of our society are exploited by the media, from our racial differences to our political affiliations. In my latest book, Stop Mass Hysteria, and yes, I will quote my book, I caution readers about the gravity of hatred, and I try to warn you. And I wrote this as my opening line. Hatred is in the air. We are living in an age of hate, in which mental pollution is worse than air pollution. The most accessible and comprehensive of all unifying agents, hatred is spreading like a virus into all too willing hosts. Can you name anyone in the media who said anything on that level? I can't. It's now mainstream, this hatred on CNN and MSNBC. Fox does not use hatred as a unifying principle. But the news czar of CNN was apparently raised on the mother's milk of hatred, because it's all that his marionettes spew. Whoever runs MSNBC must also have been suckled at the breast of hatred, because that's all you hear from MSNBC's mouthpieces. It is their stock and trade. Trying to blame Trump for a Nazi's bloodbath? Now you know which side you're on by who you hate, not who you love. If you hate Trump, you also hate white people, with impunity, by the way. From there, you conclude that all people who voted for Trump are racists, which on its face is ludicrous. But your unhinged hatred and anger allow you to believe it. And you go on watching and listening to hate shows which preach that anything they disapprove of is racist and bigoted. I have tried to warn America against hatred. Recognizing hate from those on the other side of the aisle is simple. But as I described the opening pages of Stop Mass Hysteria, hatred can be infectious and most difficult to self-diagnose. From my point of view, we clearly see the hatred on the left and in the liberal media. But I fear that the conservative media equally benefits from these tactics. Could this be why they chose not to talk about my publication, Stop Mass Hysteria? And forget the book. Forget the book for a minute. It's the words, for God's sakes. Is it because I said stop mass hysteria that Murdoch's marionettes doesn't want anyone to hear it because I said stop mass hysteria? Is it because they like mass hysteria? Because the book does not fit the narrative of Murdoch's marionettes? Could it be that the right wing also has no interest in unity or peace? Never forget, the media is in the business of causing dissension, in sowing division between us. But now their rhetoric has wrought tragedy. Their constant coverage is engineered to polarize and foment prejudices while denying any wrongdoing and painting themselves as the beacons of truth. Before the consequences of hate divide us any further, we have to go back to what Benjamin Franklin said, which is the line I used to end my book. Benjamin Franklin said, as he signed the Declaration of Independence, he said the following: "We must indeed all hang together, or most assuredly we shall all hang separately." I'll be back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
Attacks, particularly on Soros, are driven largely by his Jewish faith. There are a lot of people who are generous.
Stop right there. That is one of the greatest libels I've ever heard in my life. And it's coming from one of the stinkingest people in Congress. This creep Schiff has the nerve to say that these attacks on Soros are driven largely by his Jewish faith. Nothing could be further from the truth, and yet that's the man who will be a very powerful man in this country. Shifty Schiff, the one with the shifty eyes from Southern California. You see, you can't hide behind your religion when you are a communist like they are. Make no mistake about it, George Soros is not known for being Jewish. He's known for being a progressive psychotic. George Soros has not funded Torah studies, so far as I know. George Soros and his little son there, Alexander Soros, so far as I know, are not deeply involved in traditional Jewish causes. I think they're deeply involved in traditional Marxist causes from my readings. Everything they touch is against the nation's identity. They're one world order, new world order people, those two, him and his son. So don't confuse the two. And here is the problem, Mr. Schiff. By merging their radical politics with the alleged religious affiliation, what you're doing is smearing the religion itself and making the larger population come to believe that all Jews are radical leftists, which is where the problem begins. And I want to go into that today, certainly not in this moment. Because as I was reading about the Nazi who did this cowardly Nazi to defend people, developmentally disabled brothers, others in their 70s and 80s, some 90, this was a cowardly act. There was no heroism here. I was thinking about this. How did he know that of all places, how did he choose this Reformed temple in Pittsburgh as his target? He said they had something to do with encouraging the flood of immigrants coming into this country. Now, I'm going to do a piece today called Inside the Mind of a Psychopath. Make believe it's on television and settle back and keep your jokes to yourself. If you were to analyze what triggered this guy, you could say, oh, he's just crazy. He is crazy. He's also cowardly, the killer. But there's always a reason inside a crazy person's head. I don't know if you understand that. If you study FBI profiling, they will always show you that even a crazy person in their own mind has a reason for what they do. I don't know if you understand that. You have to maybe you've seen enough movies to even understand that fundamental thought, that even a mad person, when they commit an act of violence, senseless violence, in their own mind, they have a justification for what they are doing. So this lunatic said, I'm going in, after he saw the hordes coming in on the southern border. Now you say, what's the connection? If you can't see the connection, I can't help you. If you want to sit here skating around the truths that I've been trying to warn you about, I can't help you. I told you on Friday, I warned you after the impotent bomber was caught. Do you remember what my words were on Friday? Do you remember how I tried to warn you that there are likely tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of heavily armed, trained people in this country who are at the breaking point? And if you keep spitting on them, calling them white trash, talking about them like they're garbage and non-humans, dismissing them as though they don't matter, you're going to see things happen in this country that are going to make that impotent bomber, that steroid nut, look like what he was, a clown. And I wake up Saturday morning and I say, oh my God, look what just happened. And who triggered this guy? Now, don't confuse my analysis of this cowardly madman for any sort of justification or apologies for him, because I'm not offering that at all. But, of course, the vermin in the Twitter world will immediately try to make that happen. I've got one of them now from Miami, Florida, who the FBI is tracking because their rhetoric is escalating. You have no idea what it's like to be in the public eye today unless you're in it. It's very easy to sit in your house and listen to me or listen to someone else and have your own opinion. And God bless you for listening to this show. But when you are on the front lines in the nation right now, you don't know what hatred is out there like I do. And the deranged mentality of these liberal progressives is something to behold. So, my intent today is to first, as I started with a prayer for the dead, to remember the poor people who were slaughtered like sheep in the synagogue in Pittsburgh. That's what I did in the beginning. So we don't forget we're talking about human life here. And then I'm trying to tell you that I've, since the 1980s, tried to warn rabbis to have armed guards in synagogues, and they look at me like I'm crazy. They live in a dream world, most of you don't understand what liberalism is. You really don't, unless you're around it. They give you statements like, God will protect us. And I say, moron, do you remember the Holocaust? What do you mean God will protect you, idiot? Where was he when they threw him into the ovens? As they went in with a Torah in their hand. You can't talk to people who are stupid and blind and suicidal. With their running around, God's going to protect them. No, God's not going to protect you at all. God helps those who help themselves. Israel wouldn't have existed for 1 second was it not for guns. Well, what's wrong with you people? When will the liberal understand the world that they live in? And why do they hate so much? Why do the people who claim to love so much have so much hate in their heart for this nation? Why do they hate the identity of America? Why do they embrace the identity of a so-called world that doesn't even exist except in their own idealistic mind? Why? Why do they have such a contempt for Americans who are nationalistic? Why? Why does that frighten them so much? I told you I'm going to go into the mind of a psychopath in a moment. That is the Nazi. And one question keeps begging to be answered. He said that he was going to target these people in this synagogue because they have a group called Hayas, I think, Hebrew, whatever it was, that funds refugees in America. How did he know that this group, for example, I'm not justifying, I'm asking a question. How did he know this group was headquartered or related to this particular congregation of people, number one? Number two, why did he choose Hayas or whatever it's called when we know that Catholic Charities, for example, is the single biggest engine bringing in illegal aliens into America? You have to be stupid to not understand that. Catholic Charities is the single biggest engine. I didn't see him go into a Catholic church. I'm not saying he should have, but we're talking here like we're in a room of police people trying to figure it out. You know, a profiler. Why did he choose this synagogue in Pittsburgh? Catholic Charities spends more money bringing in refugees than this group does. if they were even there. I don't even know if HIAS, whatever it's called, was even in there. Hebrew, whatever, Aid Society or something of that kind. We know that Baptist Family Services also makes a fortune off this immigration thing. Now, if you're a poor white guy on the bottom, not making much money, and every day you turn on the television, you see snotty jerks putting you down, laughing at you. Do I have to name the names? Talking about imaginary things such as white privilege. Every other word is a put down of the white male. Every other word coming out of the snotty degenerates is a put down of white people, and particularly of the white male. They make the white male into a mockery. I warned you on Friday, and I quoted Goethe, the great 19th century German poet, when I said, if you take a man as he is, you make him worse. If you take him as he can be, you can make him better. Words fell on deaf ears. I wake up, and there they are doing it again. Again, attacking people like that. And if you think he's the only one like that, you're crazier than he is. If you think that this man, this lone wolf terrorist who did this to the Jewish people, is alone, you're crazier than he is. I told you, and I'll tell you again, there are armies of people who are armed to the teeth and are at a snapping point because they cannot take the hatred anymore. The contempt that is thrown upon them by the snotty people in the media and in the universities is having an effect. So this one snapped, and who we took it out on? Poor, innocent, defenseless people who couldn't even defend themselves. We have to cool it. Everyone has to understand the other guy's position, the other guy's side, or it's going to get worse before it gets better. So this one snapped, and he went crazy at this. I don't even know why he chose them. I still don't know why. He had something about the Hebrew Aid Society as a group with this. I don't know whether he picked this synagogue in particular, or this was just by one synagogue in Pittsburgh that he picked. I don't know. I don't know the reason he picked on these poor people. Could have been anyone. But it was this group of people. So the first thing I thought was, going back to 1981, I used to tell people in Jewish centers, you should have an armed guard. The men should learn how to use weapons. And the answers I would get would make my stomach turn. And they have no sense of survival. None. 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 No sense of self-preservation or survival. You have no idea what it's like talking to people who are so foolish. The Israelis know I'm right. Many, many people have known I'm right with the churches in America. Many churches are now protected by armed guards. But to a progressive, the idea of using a policeman, an off-duty policeman or an armed guard, is such anathema. They would rather see people defenseless than protected because they don't want to be seen as politically on the side of those of us who understand the power of protection that guns afford us. So none other than the lunatic of lunatics, de Blasio, in New York, has the nerve to say no guns are needed. Listen to clip 6 and you'll hear the mind of a madman. You want to hear madness?
We have never allowed the normalization of hate. That's not what we will stand for. And in that vein, we have to say what was said yesterday was also unacceptable. No, houses of worship do not have to have armed guards to be able to practice their religions. That's not America.
You know, you are really stupid. I'm coming to understand that there's actually no logic or reason in the mind of a liberal. What does normalization of hate have to do with protecting yourself in a synagogue or a church? There's no connection between the two. And I will say again, there's only one solution to this. Protect yourself at all times, because no one else will be there to protect you. Now, we can fast forward because I'm not ready to move up there yet. I got too many hours to go here to move up to it. But at the end of this terrible tragedy, where this Nazi psychotic killed unarmed, defenseless Jews who had no way to defend themselves, it was the police with guns, Mr. de Blasio, who went in and stopped them. It wasn't you with your foul mouth. It was cops with guns, some of whom got shot. Shame on you, de Blasio. Shame on you for debasing the police for doing this incredible job. They were the ones who tracked him to a little room where he was hiding. They were the ones who got this cowardly psychotic to throw his weapons down. He's in a hospital somewhere being cared for. Don't you just love that? Like the terrorists we've seen in America, after they kill people, they're treated better than the people they shot. What a wonderful country we live in. But nevertheless, I'm just a talk show host observing and trying to help you get through this day. I know many of you are waiting for my opinion. I understand that. I have a very loyal audience who appreciates my view of things. And so far, I've given you several views of these things in one way or another. But I've not yet gotten to inside the mind of a psychopath. I've also challenged you by saying, do you believe that I'm correct, that we need armed guards in houses of worship? I mean, it's such an obvious answer to the question. What is de Blasio talking about? What do you mean? Who's normalizing hate? We're saying protect the people. Put a policeman in. Isn't that what we do with schools now? Remember what happened in Florida with that cowardly cop who hid behind those pillars? Remember him? He was actually in the school to protect the children. When that guy came in with the gun, where was he? Hiding behind the pillars. He's collecting a pension now. The cop should be in prison who ran away. These cops should be invited to the White House, which they will be. One of them is still in the hospital because he took bullet wounds in the hands. Thank God none of them were killed. But some of them were severely injured. Because unlike de Blasio, they knew that one thing, guns save lives. Guns save lives. Guns save lives. It's a great group called Jews for the Protection of Firearms Ownership. They know all about this. And so I want to play for you the sound at this moment of the scanner audio at the end of it. Is this the one at the end? I don't want the one of it at the beginning. We have the scanner audio of the cops going in. Please play that one. Listen to this.
Be advised, we're pushing up onto the third floor from the shady side. Got a second team doing a re-clear of the basement and the first floor. How copy? 7-1, contact, shots fired. Okay, 7-1, shots fired. Give me additional resources, third floor. Resources to the third floor, 1054. Come on, we got a guy barricaded actively shooting at SWAT operators. Operator shot. Guys, we got one operator shot at this time.
Third floor, contained in one room. One operator down.
We have eyes on the door. We have one operator hit high in the arm. Like that up to put a gun on it. We have one operator hit high in the arm. We have a tourniquet. That's all I got right now. Shots were still going off when I came out of the room. Believe he's still alive. All right, be advised, technology is black at this time. We're treating this as a barricaded gunman. We're going to work the problem. How copy? Spontaneous negotiations, ongoing communications efforts to get him to come out, telling him we're not coming in. All right, he's given orders to crawl out. He's not done so yet. All right, be advised, we have a suspect giving us hands and view for negotiated surrender at this time. All units, hold what you got. Suspect said his name is Rob Bowers. He says he's carrying an AR-15 and a Glock at this time. AR-15 and a Glock, which matches our magazines on 1, 4, 1, and 2. Working the problem.
So
7-1, clear the air. We have a surrender in progress. Suspects crawling out at this time. Clear the air.
Well, that's the police scanner as they went in to take down the Nazi after he killed all of those innocent people. But as you could see, they went in with guns drawn, not with a white flag. They weren't waving the French flag when they went in. These are heavily armed, highly trained, extremely brave men who went in there. It wasn't a bunch of liberals going in waving Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in book form and asking him to please join them for a snack. They were ready to shoot, and they got shot, some of them. Guns can save lives. And in New York, by the way, the NYPD was sent to protect mosques. I don't know if you know that. The same de Blasio who's saying guns are never the answer. We don't have to have armed guards to practice our religion. Why did he send armed guards to mosques? Anyone have an answer to that? Because he's a liar hypocrite, period. He's a mook, he's a bum, he's a mutt.
Join the Savage Nation. Call
Let me ask you something. What's better than sleep at night? Well, don't answer me. It's a family show, but I got to tell you, I've been sleeping on my Casper mattress, and I really love it. I'll pick it over any mattress I ever had. It really does help me get the best night's sleep. And you can switch to Casper. It's a no-brainer. It's a high-quality mattress at an affordable price. You will sleep as coolly and as comfortably as you can imagine, thanks to the unique method that they make this mattress. And they ship it to your door for free in a small, how they do it, little box. And if you don't like it, they'll come and pick it up and refund you every dime. From its engineering to its packaging to letting you try it for 100 nights. It's no wonder Casper has over 35,000 five-star reviews of all their products across Casper, Google, and Amazon. What's the best way to test the mattress? Sleep on it. So why don't you put Casper to the test your own home for 100 nights? Risk-free. Just go to Casper.com, code SAVAGE. And you'll also get $50 towards the purchase of select mattresses. That's Casper.com, code SAVAGE, and you'll get $50 towards the purchase of select mattresses. Casper.com, terms and conditions do apply. Again, this show is dedicated to the memory of those slaughtered mercilessly in Pittsburgh. I am calling for armed guards in houses of worship, as I have since the early 1980s. We are also reporting that Soros-backed progressives are telling Trump to stay away from the synagogue in Pittsburgh, which is a nightmarish mistake of the highest order. We're also talking about what is inside the mind of a psychopath like this, and we're going to do that in the next hour. And I want to read something before I take calls. Jeff on WABC, please hold on. Here is a prayer that men in the military used to read before they went into combat, until the vermin took over the military and destroyed even a faith in God, until they made them pray to Gaia. They would read, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters." I can't even read it, I'll tell you the truth. I'm so angry right now. I'm so pent up with rage and anger and frustration. For me to read this, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. I used to hear this prayer in public school when I was a boy in the Bronx. Would you believe this? We read this in public school until the perverted communists took over our schools and threw the Ten Commandments into the trash can and replaced it with the worst kind of vile perversion you could ever imagine. Why would a child not want to hear that? Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. That stuck with me. The prayer stuck with me. It made me understand there's a higher power than me. I love that prayer. But we can't read it anymore? Why? When are they going to come to us and burn our Bibles? When will all of the armies of left-wing progressives say the Bible is a book of hate? We're going to burn your Bible. You say that can't happen here? They are psychopathic in their desire to wipe out all traces of our religions, all traces of our civilization, all traces of our national identity. And I'll stick by those words. It's that simple. I don't have to add to that. I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. He leadeth me beside still waters. He sure has, in my case. But beyond the still waters are the waters of rage that threaten all of us.
Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Stop Mass Hysteria, Michael Savage.
One of the great poems in English literature, Dylan Thomas, he wrote that for his father's eulogy. And I play it tonight after playing the Kaddish in the first hour for the Jewish dead. Because today a piece of us must understand a piece of us died. All of us died on Saturday. A piece of America was shot to death on Saturday by this Nazi bastard. There's no justification. There's only a dissection by a psychiatrist of what triggered him. And unless you are willing to actually dissect the diseased mind of that cowardly Nazi, more of these events will occur. I'm promising you that. Now, you could twist my words, as most of you don't do, but some of you do. We live in a time, because of social media, where the lowest of IQs now meet the highest of IQs, and they think they're equal. The most illiterate people on earth now think that they're equal to the most literate people because they can write some hateful screed on Twitter or Facebook. And they walk away into their world thinking that they've succeeded somehow in expressing some view that has meaning. It has no meaning. And yet, that's the world we're living in. The great leveler, Twitter. On one hand, you could say it's a democracy, that the most humble person can meet the most intelligent on an equal footing. But it's certainly not true. And all it does is diminish the intellect of the entire world. It lowers the IQ to the lowest common denominator, does not raise it up to the highest common denominator. In essence, we all are now to the level of, let's say, the average illiterate rap star. The average illiterate rapper is now the norm for the American language as a result of music and Twitter. But I'm getting a little far afield right now. We are, in a way, honoring and respecting the dead in Pittsburgh, but I also referenced the black people who were slaughtered a couple of years ago by that Dylan Root, if you remember him. We shouldn't forget that. Not forget that. 9 who was shot in a black church in Charleston, South Carolina, June 17th, 2015. I never forgot it. Church members shot as they took part at Bible study. Mainly older black people, nice people. Bothered nobody. Slaughtered by this maniac, Dylan Roof. Went in there and killed them, shot them the same way these Jewish people were shot. So what is it in the mind of these cowardly psychotics that they pick on the softest, weakest targets to make their deranged statements? They're not going after armed people on the other side, are they? No, they're always picking weak, defenseless people to attack. Same way the Islamic murderers target defenseless people on a Sunday afternoon, whether it's on a bike path in New York or a nightclub in Florida. People having a good time. Always defenseless people. So the logical conclusion is armed guards. If the people won't arm themselves, then okay, most people are afraid of guns. By and large, most people fear guns. I've seen this my whole life. I've heard people say, I don't want a gun in my house, and the answer is why? Well, they're afraid they'll use it on themselves. Or they'll use it against the spouse in a moment of rage. And then there are those of us who understand the difference between fear and reality. And we understand that we have to protect ourselves in a society where you can't have a policeman in every home. And so we come back to the questions of the day, which is, should armed guards be placed in houses of worship? Absolutely, no question about it. Just as we came to that conclusion with the school shootings, common sense would dictate that. Of course, most schools have armed guards around them, but not to the progressive. The regressive mind is so blind to reality that no matter what the question is, they always come up with the wrong answer. I want to now go to some of the callers. Line 4, Jeff, WABC, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Hi, Dr. Savage. I'm actually a genocide teacher not too far from Pittsburgh, and I wanted to call up and just tell you that you've been pretty spot on today. I've been teaching this for years. When you have a society like ours based on ideals like the Bill of Rights, liberty, that we're free men and women, and then you neglect that year after year after year, you get to a point where you're in a post-constitutional America. And when you get to that point and you push people against the wall, people revert to their ethno-nationalism. They revert to this tribalism, and it's disgusting. And we have to stand with the Jewish community today of Pittsburgh, around the world. We have to stand with all free men and women, and we have to remember that we're Americans. We need to stick together. Myself, my brother, and my brother's active duty in the Navy. My father's a veteran, and you know we've seen this. We see this slow pattern of the collapse of our constitutional order, and you you get afraid.
How does the collapse of our constitutional order lead to a Nazi armed to the teeth slaughtering Jews who have no way to defend themselves? How does that work?
What I mean, Dr. Savage, and no disrespect to anyone in any community, what I'm saying is that what binded us together as a nation was the fact that we believed in individual liberty, and we believed in the rights of the individual. And now what we see these maniacs, especially in the white nationalist movement. You see this retrenchment into this tribalism that everyone in that group.
But you're blaming white nationalists now for all problems in America. What about Louis Farrakhan just last week calling Jews termites?
What I'm saying is that
no. Let's not run over that. I know it makes people nervous. Louis Farrakhan has preached anti-Jewish, anti-Semitism for ages. Last week he joked and mocked Jews and called them termites. Are you aware of that?
I was not.
Of course you're not. Now, why are you not aware of Louis Farrakhan's hate speech, which Twitter will not block? The reason you're not aware of it is because the vermin in the media who are spreading hatred and lies won't even play the tape of Louis Farrakhan calling Jews termites. So before you start saying it's only white nationalists who are the problem, I think you need to look at the broader problem in our society.
No. I completely agree with you. I was using them as one example. But it's the point. My main point is that when you have a constitutional order, or even take a terrible system like communism, okay, where you have.
I think we're getting too far afield right now, and I know. Look, you're on the right side of things. I trust you know what you're talking about. But I'm going to get the wheel back in my hands now. I need to take the ship of the Savage Nation back in my hands, because I don't want to now go into the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that hatred is in the air, spreading like a virus. We're talking about the fact that the media is the host organism that is spreading this virus. We're talking about the fact that without hatred, these media entities wouldn't survive a week. They wouldn't survive a week if they were told that they had to stop it. If you took Jeff Zucker in a room and you said, you stop your marionettes on CNN from spreading this hatred against white people, against white nationalists, because you're just stirring them up, I'll tell you right now, Jeff Zucker wouldn't change one word coming out of Andy Blooper's mouth or any of the other characters that work for him in the chorus line. There's no common sense left. There's no decency left in the media. So today I told you I'm not going to write the whole ship of state, but I am talking about why it happened in the minds of the madmen without justifying, explaining two different things. A Soros-backed group of regressives in Pittsburgh have the nerve to say to Trump, don't come to Pittsburgh, you're not wanted here. 16,000 communists in a group called Bend the Arc Jewish Action, funded by Alexander Soros, tens of thousands of, quote, regressive Jews. And now they're rising up in solidarity against Donald Trump. And the board of directors goes along with this. Do you have any idea what kind of anti-Semitism this stirs up in the country when the average person out there in the hinterland says, oh, it's those Jews in Pittsburgh who don't want Trump there? Do you have any idea what damage progressives are doing to this nation? They should know that after this killing to stop it, but they can't stop it because liberalism is a serious mental disorder. The rabbi wants Trump there. The rabbi wants Trump there. Make no mistake about it. It's this group of mentally bent individuals funded by Soros' son in this group Bend the Arc, no less, which is quite ironic. Bend the Arc. You hear Bend the Arc. I wonder how long it's been since any of them actually walked with an ark, with a Torah from the ark, and felt the power of those letters and the power of the books of Moses in those letters. There's a magic in it, by the way, a power that you can't imagine unless you actually have done it. When you stand in front of those Hebrew letters, even if you don't read them, and you stare at them and you realize that for thousands of years, these words of God have instructed mankind, you feel something that you can't explain in other words. There's no way to explain it, you see. Well, anyway, I want to move on. I think I made my point. So what point do you want to make is the point? WABC Liz, line 4. Here comes a hater. Go ahead, Liz. You're up.
Hi, thank you. I'm an independent. I don't identify with either party so strongly, but I have to say that I after last week's just show of hatred after one group after another and this rhetoric, I think that you, of all people on the radio, could maybe rise above it more and not bring up, George Soros evil and vitriol in the media.
Well, George Soros is evil, in my opinion. What does it have to do with him? Wait a minute, ma'am. You're assuming that I detest George Soros' politics because he is Jewish. You could not be further from the truth. I detest George Soros' communism, Marxism, New World Orderism. It has nothing to do with his non-religion. So far as I know, he's not even a religious man. Why are you assuming he's such a religious man?
Let me finish my point. I didn't say anything about him being religious, did I?
Wait a minute. What are you trying to do? Play games with me? I know what you just implied, that I'm an anti-Semite because I criticize his Marxism.
No, I didn't say anything like that. I'm saying you, in the media, I think you have to be more morally responsible and stop attacking people that you've seen gets people riled up, and then they...
Wait, you mean like George Soros spends hundreds of millions of dollars funding Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and Occupy movements? What about that hatred that's spread through him and his money? What about that?
You have to listen fairly. George Soros is right there with the Koch brothers. They both...
Don't lump the two together. No, sir. No, ma'am. I'm sorry. No, don't put two and two. Don't come up one and one or five. George Soros funds the most vile hate groups in America, in my opinion. Black Lives Matter is a domestic terrorist group. Occupy, domestic terrorist group. Antifa, domestic terrorist group. So don't make believe he's such an innocent lamb who's suddenly hiding behind his alleged affiliation with a religion. I'll be back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
70.
Cyber criminals can attack your laptop, tablet, or smartphone without warning, without you even knowing, or they can steal your identity, and you may not realize it until it's too late. And that's why LifeLock Identity Theft Protection now includes the power of Norton Security to help protect your identity on devices. I have both. LifeLock uses proprietary technology to help detect a range of threats to your identity. How about your personal info for sale on the dark web? Well, Norton Security protects against online threats like ransomware or malware. And if there's a problem, LifeLock with Norton has agents who will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or cybercrime or monitor transactions at all businesses. But new LifeLock with Norton Security provides more detection and more protection against cyber threats. Go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock and use promo code SAVAGE for an additional 10% off your first year. Plus, you get a $25 Amazon gift card with annual enrollment. That's LifeLock.com, promo code SAVAGE for 10% off and a $25 Amazon gift card. LifeLock.com, code SAVAGE. Terms apply.
Ken Lanphier in the morning with everything Kalamazoo. AM 590 and 106.9 FM. WKZO.
Well, again, I don't think we should lose the focus of today's program on the Savage Nation. It began with, and many of you who are calling in this hour missed the opening to hour number one, which is a shame, but I understand most people listen for 7 minutes or so to any talk radio show. I opened with a Holy Kaddish, the prayer for the dead, and I was trying to set the tone, not only of civility, but sanctity. It was in the memory of those slaughtered in the synagogue in Pittsburgh. Instead, I get callers who are so regressive that they bring up George Soros like he has nothing to do with the hatred right now, that he's an innocent lamb when he's been funding these radical leftist groups who, in fact, are terrifying these nationalists, by the way, and are getting their backs up. So if you want me to make the connections between the boogeyman of America today, the one that you're allowed to voice contempt for, the white nationalists, I will do so. I'll be glad to do it for you, because there have always been white nationalists in this country. Many of them died in World War II. Oh, yes, there have been a lot of white nationalists in America. Look at some of the Revolutionary War cemeteries. Oh, yes, there have been a lot of white nationalists in America. Look at all of the military cemeteries around America. You'll see an awful lot of white nationalists who went to fight and die for their country. But all of a sudden, the word white and nationalist has been linked together by the radical left into one phrase that signifies something other than being Caucasian, a Caucasian who loves his nation. Suddenly, it means something akin to Nazism. And this is a trick of the radical left in America. They've tricked many people who don't even know what they're talking about to think that if you are of a Caucasian background and you're a nationalist, you're a Nazi. It ain't necessarily so. So, therefore, we have to look into the mind of the white nationalist, especially the one who did this horrible thing, this killing on Saturday. And I haven't gotten to it yet. I tried to take you as a profiler into the mind of that psychopath. But I'm not getting there yet. What would make a man do a thing like this? What would take a psychopath and trigger him like this? And are we close to Germany in the 1930s? Stay tuned. You'll hear what I have to say. I want to get to inside the mind of a psychopath before I forget where I'm trying to go. I don't have the time I need. And before I do that, before I tell you about what this Nazi maniac said before he said, I'm going in, what did he do this for? Why did he pick on Pittsburgh, this synagogue? What does it have to do with the Hayas group, which we read about for a moment? It came and went very quickly. Hayas group, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. They welcome refugees around the world, and they bring them into countries. Global Jewish nonprofit. So if you think that all of these guys are stupid and they don't read and they don't know what's going on in their minds now. I didn't say that this was justified in what he did. Don't twist my words as many of you try to do on Twitter. If you don't understand them, it's going to get a lot worse. Now, I try to warn America and the world on Friday on this program. And I want to play for you what I said on Friday. It's only 37 seconds long. Listen to it again. The bomber was caught. Great. At least we think he was the bomber. But as I said to you, an early program director said when I was getting hate mail in the beginning of radio, I think he said a flasher doesn't rape. This kind of impotent violence, no matter how disturbing it may be, is impotent violence. The real ones wouldn't give you such a warning. Bingo. The real ones out there who are capable of these things. So I would say cool the rhetoric. Don't get more agitated now, you people on the left, because you're going to trigger someone who's really going to be bad. Oh, God. Just cool it. I warned you. I told you to stop your hatred of white nationalists, of white men, of men with guns, but you wouldn't do it. You think it's a game, don't you? You think it's all a game to go out there and taunt people. And what happened was as bad as it can get. But how did this man why did he target this group in Pittsburgh of basically old people, disabled people, developmentally disabled people, however you want to put it today? Why did he go crazy? What was it now? Why now? Well, I know what he said. We read it. Initially, the reports came out, then they brushed them aside. They put them aside, so you couldn't even read the maniac's thinking. Well, he said that he was seeing the mobs coming in from Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, through Mexico, and he saw them as an invasion army. So, in his mind, he's a soldier for America, in this twisted mind. But instead of taking it out on a battlefield against armed soldiers, this twisted coward goes and kills innocent people who are defenseless. But as I told you before, even psychopaths have so-called rationales for what they do. Ask any psychiatrist who works with them in a mental hospital or a jail. They all explain why they did it. And until you're willing to understand that even the craziest person often has a rationale for, quote, why they snapped, you're not going to be able to stop the next one. And only by understanding why this man snapped and telling Jeff Zucker and his marionettes at CNN and the crazy girls on MSNBC, the crazy sorority girls on MSNBC, that includes the men. They're all in the same sorority. Until those crazy people are told to zip it and stop provoking this type, this is going to happen again. I'll predict it again. You don't understand. There's cause and effect. You can blame the right all you want. It's not going to change a thing. You can hate all you want. It's not going to change a thing. Only by stopping the marionettes on television from condemning, mocking, ridiculing, insulting, and humiliating this type will we have a chance to control what happens next. That's how I see it. You can scream with impotent rage all you want up and down NYU's corridors. You can hate Trump all you want. Nothing's going to change. Until you stop the sororities on television from attacking one segment of this population, and only one segment. There's only one left that they can pick on. And this was one of them. This guy, in his mind, was a victim, whether you know it or not. Crazy as he is, I can guarantee you that when he goes on trial, and he will, because he wasn't killed by the police who went in there to stop him from killing more, when he goes on trial, he will get a defense attorney who will take up from where I am today and explain to the jury that while what he did was the most reprehensible thing you could imagine, criminal, cowardly, etc., in his own mind, he felt threatened. In his own mind, he actually thought he was defending America. Now, you may say, oh, that's stupid, that's crazy. Well, maybe it's stupid and crazy. I am trying to explain to you what you're going to hear. That's if it ever gets to trial. So forgive me for being a few steps ahead of the game here. But as I try to warn you on Friday, this lunatic, this maniac who did this is not alone. There are thousands of him armed to the teeth, seething in this country. You never hear from them. They're quiet. They don't belong to any groups. They don't march around with armbands. They don't play old Hitler tapes. They're seething. They're at the bursting point. And all they hear is that the white male is this, the white male is that. He's like an oaf, an idiot, a moron, a nobody. And he's reviled everywhere in the media. They laugh at him. They snicker at him. They make him into a joke. They don't dare do it about any other race, religion, or sexual orientation. Only the white male. And here's one of them went insane. And he should be given the death penalty. Make no mistake about it. I've told you that. But if you want to prevent the next one from exploding, I suggest that Jeff Zucker of CNN tell his marionettes to stop it. And I suggest that Phil Griffin of MSNBC stop provoking hatred in this nation. Tell your girls to stop it. Tell your girls that there's something more important than ratings, which is a nation. WABC, Ben, line 3. What's on your mind, Ben?
Hey, Michael. I wanted to talk about what you said with our mayor in New York City, Mayor de Blasio, who said that we shouldn't normalize hate. We could gloss over that. What he was trying to say, essentially, was the new norm shouldn't be that we need armed guards in our synagogues. But like we gave up those rights going onto an airplane, we need to be searched, we need to be checked. And in Israel, where every single synagogue or school has an armed guard, that's our reality. And it's especially rich coming from him to say that we don't need armed guards when we have the most restrictive gun laws, and we're not allowed to bring the legally licensed weapons we have in our homes, and there are many of us that do. We can't bring it to our synagogue.
If I'm not mistaken, de Blasio is surrounded by armed guards, isn't he?
Of course. And every other.
And didn't de Blasio put armed guards in front of a mosque during his tenure as mayor?
Just yesterday, there were pictures of heavily armed New York City Hercules teams protecting synagogues. Why after the fact? Why not before the fact?
Well, he just said that we shouldn't have armed guards. We don't need them. I came out immediately and said, I don't want to go back to the old statement of every Jew at 22. You know who said that many years ago?
Rabbi Kahana, and you know what? He was wrong about one thing, the size of the caliber.
Very funny. Well, how does the Orthodox Jewish community feel about guns?
Well, I can't speak for everyone. I could speak for myself and my friends, and the majority of us are both licensed and carry and practice regularly.
See, now that's such an obverse view of the religious Jew.
And it's something that I heard you say last week, and I wanted to call in and speak about that. But there are many like me, and many of us are well-trained and well-armed. It's just the licensing and the bureaucracy that makes it difficult to obtain them.
Well, I'm glad that you can protect your women and children in a synagogue because, ultimately the congregation has to learn to protect itself.
But that's the issue. We can't. We're not allowed to. We can only carry in our homes. We can't bring it to our synagogues.
So who protects you? Who protects you during service?
Nobody. God, unfortunately, and that's not enough. We need.
As we learned, it's not enough. Obviously. Well, I want you to do something for me. Which part? What are you a member of? Chabad? Are you a Lubavitcher?
I am.
Can you please get their mailing list and tell them that as of January, they're not going to hear Michael Savage on WABC, but that if they want to hear me, they're going to have to stream the show and get the podcast for free?
I've heard you say that last
Well, I have to be clear about it. I'm not saying why. I'm not saying how. This is the way it is. I have an audience in the millions across the country, and it's enormous in New York City. But for reasons people can figure out, they're going to have to carry me on the streaming come January, but it's free and easy. Teach them how to do it. Thank you for calling. I should have sent them Stop Mass Hysteria, but then they'll say, oh, you're being self-serving by mentioning your book. Well, it is my book, and it's a prophetic book. What should I do, make believe it isn't? What do you think, it's a throwaway book, like a derivative piece of dreck that most people write today, garbage? I'm reading you the first line. Tell me if there's anything as good anywhere out there, and tell you what, I'll go buy one. Hatred is in the air. We're living in an age of hate in which mental pollution is worse than air pollution. The most accessible and comprehensive of all unifying agents. Hatred is spreading like a virus into all too willing hosts. Hatred of conservatives, hatred of Trump and his voters is just one of many cases of mass hysteria infecting American society today, but is likely the most destructive. The book came out a few weeks ago. If there's anything more prophetic in the marketplace, I haven't seen it. But it goes past this event, and I'm not going to talk about the book. I'm reading my own words, because if I don't read them, who will? You? No, nobody will. I have only this outlet, nothing else. So let's go to the madman if you want, or let's go somewhere else if you want. Pittsburgh synagogue suspect called Hias's work sugar-coated evil. Sugar-coated evil. Now, how did he come to know about Hias, number one? And what did these poor victims who were massacred have anything to do with Hias, if anything? That's two separate questions. It's an international group. It's not even headquartered in Pittsburgh. It's based in Silver Springs, Maryland. Now, when a challenge to the travel ban against Muslims reached the Supreme Court last year, this group, Hias, and its president, CEO Mark Hetfield, denounced what he saw as a policy of turning away Muslim immigrants just for being Muslim. And then he went to the Torah, Mr. Hetfield, and went into the whole story about the Torah. And so he attacked Donald Trump. This man apparently saw that, and he made the wrong connections in his brain. And this nut picked on this poor synagogue, this congregation synagogue in Pittsburgh. So how do you stop this from happening again? Well, you can scream white nationalist all you want tonight on the Upper East Side of New York. You could have your coffee clutches, your latte clutches, and you could say, oh, it's those white nationalists. You can click your tongues all you want. But if you bring in 30 million illegal immigrants over a 20-year period, and there are over 30 million guns in the hands of Americans, and you don't understand this is a tinderbox that is about to explode, and you can't put two and two together, that those on the bottom are the ones most threatened by this latest wave, what they see as an army approaching on the southern border. If you don't see that, then you see nothing, and I can't help you.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. For many years, I've been warning the Savage Nation about a secret war on cash by big government and big tech to steal both your money and your privacy. Well, recent reports confirm that this war is expanding like wildfire, and time is running out to take action. Will you please not become the next victim in this battle? please discover how to win the war to destroy your hard-earned savings. My good friends at Swiss America have detailed all the dirty little government secrets in their updated report. It's free. It's called The Secret War on Cash, Part 2. It's available now by calling 800-289-2646, 800-289-2646 for this important report, The Secret War on Cash. This documents real-life events such as banks refusing to cash checks, cash being confiscated from innocent citizens, and much, much more. Don't delay. Call now, 800-289-2646, and you will get your free copy of The Secret War on Cash Part 2. Call 800-289... let me tell you something about the recent news about online security breaches. It's very hard not to worry about where my data goes. Making an online purchase or simply accessing your email could frankly put your private information at great risk. You are being tracked online by social media sites, marketing companies, and your mobile or internet provider. Not only can they record your browsing history, but they often sell it to other corporations who want to profit from your information. And that's why I decided to take my privacy back by using ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN has easy-to-use apps that run seamlessly in the background of my computer, phone, and tablet. Turning on ExpressVPN protection only takes one click. ExpressVPN secures and anonymizes your internet browsing by encrypting your data and hiding your public IP address. You heard me right. It hides your public IP address. And it costs less than $7 a month. ExpressVPN is rated the #1 VPN service by TechRadar and comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So, if you ever use public Wi-Fi and you want to keep hackers and spies from seeing your data, you get ExpressVPN. And if you don't want to hand over your online history to your internet provider, use ExpressVPN. Protect your online activity today and find out how you can get 3 months free at expressvpn.com/savage. That's expressvpn.com/savage for 3 free months with a 1-year package. Go to expressvpn.com/savage to learn more now. And now I catch a breath, and we learn more now about the slaughter of innocent Jews on Saturday. So, in his mind, the country was being invaded. And he was on a site called Gab, a right-wing site. And he said that HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, was conducting sugar-coated evil. 17 days before the horrific attack, the murderer posted a HIAS list of several Shabbat services for refugees, including one less than a mile away from the Tree of Life synagogue. He then stated he hated the Jewish community. He then said that he preferred the term invaders over illegals to describe immigrants, and shortly before the massacre, he said this on that site: HIAS likes to bring in invaders that kill our people. The next message appears to lay bare his alleged plans for the slaughter at the Tree of Life. He wrote, quote, "I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. Screw your optics, I'm going in," unquote. Minutes later, the maniac went in and slaughtered 11 old people, shot several police officers to try to get him, and after the cops got him, he said, "I just want to kill Jews." So what does this have to do with you, the listener? You'll have to figure out on your own what you want to do. You have to figure out whether your old doxies apply today and whether they will apply tomorrow. Whether you're going to continue lying to yourself that these are just refugees running from the most dangerous countries in the world and we have to open our arms to the world's refugees and that they can apply for asylum and it's not illegal. That's the progressive liberal view, which keeps their machine going. But most of them are not refugees from violence. They are economic refugees, and they are not entitled to asylum, by the way.
Join the